Hey everybody, welcome to another video review. Been going kind of slow on my statue reviews these days, and I promise I'll be getting back to that. But nowadays, the only thing that can get me to make a video review on the same day that I get a piece are these like amazing master replicas lightsaber hilts. And so today is no exception. I finally got in one of the holy grails of the master replicas lightsaber line. This is the Star Wars Episode 6 Return of the Jedi Luke Skywalker lightsaber. It's a signature edition, and this is the version 2. So as those of you who follow this channel for a while have figured out, I don't do any scripting. So everything's just sort of impromptu, off the cuff. There's a lot of ums and ahs and some silly, faux pas. But it is natural. That's just kind of like the style that I have. I guess it's kind of like a little bit sad in the sense that, you don't have a more professional review of some of these amazing collectibles, but they're so rare. And so I guess what I lack in professionalism, I guess I make up for in amount of time that I give to the piece. So definitely quantity over quality as far as this channel is concerned for these. Okay, so how should we begin with this? There's not a whole lot to tell about how I got it. Now, usually there's a great story on how I sourced these pieces, but in this case, there's not a lot to that. I guess I should just kind of slowly turn it around while I talk so you can get to appreciate it from different angles. This is one of the rarest of the Master Replicas series of lightsabers. They only made 500 of these. And so that's as rare as these lightsabers get. If you believe rumor, then maybe the Return of the Jedi signature edition Darth Vader signed by David Prowse, maybe a little bit rarer. There were rumors that maybe they only made 250 instead of 500. I tend not to believe that because that would have gotten out. I mean, David Prowse had to sign them. There was people at that signing. You would think that if that was true, there would be some, corroboration and they would have slipped out, and it really hasn't. And so I don't really believe that. So if that's the case, then this hilt does join, Vader, Jedi, as one of the rarest and most limited hilts in the Master Replicas line. So they are very, very, very hard to come by. I luckily managed to get one in its original packaging in the black box. The black box is a little bit worse for wear, but acceptable. It did not have the brown shipper. But by the time we got to this was like in 2000, I think 2007, maybe late 2006, early 2007. We'll find out once we open up the certificate of authenticity. But by the time we got to this late date in the Master Replica Star Wars license, they had basically completely done away with the custom felt boxes. The old ones, they would package the acrylic case and the mirror base directly in the brown shipper, and then the lightsaber would go into this really nice, classy, custom foam or felt, box with an actual like latch and hinges. It was really, really nice, in a slipcase. And so for those sabers, like the brown shipper kind of is important, because the brown shipper actually literally is the original packaging to keep the case and the mirror safe. But by the time we got to, say, the Return of the Jedi Vader, and the Luke, they didn't really have that custom box anymore. And so they actually just made a large black box, and in there was just basically styrofoam. And the hilts, instead of being in this like really, really nice, classy blue, blue foam or blue velvet, like indentation, like custom made for it, it was just in foam, like any statue or something like that, which again is a little bit sad because, you can see the degradation, right, of the extras and the sort of the boutique nature of the brand and the luxury aspect of the brand. You can see it degrading little by little as they went along. So that was unfortunate, but it also made it a little bit, easier to protect. And to be fair, master replicas had gotten a lot better by the end of the line in how to properly protect their mirror bases and their acrylic case. Okay, so yes, it's not as quote unquote sexy as the blue velvet lined, hinged box, which you will, if you see my reviews, you'll see a few of them, like the early Vaders had them. You'll see what I'm talking about. The Mace Windu had them, for instance. The Dooku definitely. So you lose a little bit of that, but then the engineering is better, and so the risk of breakage, the risk of damage is way less. So there is a trade-off there. And also then, of course, for the later sabers, missing the brown shipping box is not as big a deal, because at the end of the day, that brown shipper essentially, just like with statues, like sideshow collectibles or whatever, that brown shipper becomes essentially just like a second skin to the actual black box or color box, which is the important thing. So again, mine didn't have the brown shipper, but by this stage, didn't really matter. So pretty happy that that was the case. All the original paperwork, of course, the plaque, the case, everything, was complete. So how much do these go for? Let's just get right to that part. People are going to wonder. Prices vary all over the place, because when there's only 500, the prices will fluctuate because it just kind of varies between who's buying, who's selling. But in essence, a complete in box with original packaging with everything, and of course in excellent condition, it will usually run in the mid 3,000s. So I would say like 35 to 3,600 is what you're going to be looking to pay for it. I don't think I think breaking 4,000 is really shaky even for these. Anything I would say in the low 3,000s would be a deal, and I actually don't really think it's possible to buy one of these guys complete in box in pristine condition for under 3,000. I mean, that you have to be very, very, very lucky. In general, from some of the research I've done, from talking to people who have these, it's looking at 3,500, 3,600. I mean, that's kind of what you're looking at. And then you put in PayPal fees, you put in shipping, you put in all of those things. You can bump it up quite a bit. But if you're able to get one of these guys for 35 to 3,600 shipped, or all in or all out, then that's, in my opinion, as of 2023, early 2023, I think that's a fair price. I got this, and then I think there was another, probably one person, who might have been willing to sell it. And there's one or two others who are thinking about it. The thing with these pieces is very few people who will just like actually put it out there. They'll have it and they'll kind of, I don't want to say they're playing games, because they're not really. I don't think it's anything malicious. It's that they don't really want to sell it, and so they're kind of waiting to sort of wait for like an offer that'll blow them away, right? That's kind of what they're waiting for. And so there was, I think, about 1, 2, 3 people maybe like that, but there wasn't any concrete price. Okay, I'm gonna actually take the black background off a little bit, just because when I'm twirling this around, just like all of the other sabers, the acrylic case is so polished that it just sort of acts like a mirror, and then you're just seeing me again, on my reflection, which is a little bit distracting. So anyways, that's kind of, the story behind this. There's maybe at any point in time, there's a couple, maybe 2 or 3 that might be floating out there, and the price is not going to be cheap. There's one on eBay right now that's for like 6,000, which of course is way, way, way too ambitious. And there might be one coming out that's just going to go on straight out auction. I don't know when that'll come out, but that will be pretty amazing, because straight auction means that may the highest bidder win, and there's a bit of risk in that. I mean, it could go really, really high, or depending on the finances, on the state of the economy, on the type of collector who's actually going for it, it may not do as well. So, that might be coming along. But again, they're out there, but they're not many. And then once they, kind of get bought by a collector like myself, who is unlikely to ever sell it, then it goes into their so-called forever home, or quote unquote forever home, and then it gets more and more and more rare. So in any case, that's like the story of how I came to get it. I like to show you again the beautiful acrylic case. No acrylic case and no mirror base ever comes apparently perfectly. Maybe, I guess, if it's brand new in box and nobody's ever opened it, it might be. But it seems to me like just the act of a dust particle settling on it and a simple wipe will just create a little micro scratch. A lot of these acrylic cases did come with little tiny scratches here or there. I don't think I have a single Masters Replicas mirror-based acrylic case without some tiny little scratch, etc. So that's why, I say thank God for things like the Brilliant Eyes and the Novus level 2 fine scratch remover. I've used it on all of the cases, and they all come up looking absolutely gorgeous, absolutely pristine. This one came with these little tiny plexus of little tiny scratches here or there. And after using those two products, it's like sheer glass, absolutely amazing. So this is in real time in high definition. And as I go through, you can see that it's impossible to tell that there's any real imperfection at all. I mean, if you look at it from a very, very precise angle, maybe you can see the barest hint of a scratch or here or there, but you can't feel it, and it looks very, very good. So I did the same thing before I do my YouTube video reviews. I always polish the acrylic case, polish the mirror base, and then I wipe off the lightsaber hilt. I never ever touch the lightsaber hilt with my bare hands. That's just kind of 101 collecting, so to speak. Okay, so here we go. Now that we've talked a little bit about its secondary market value currently, its limitation, as well as the condition of the cases and the mirror base, I guess we can get into a little bit about the lore of this lightsaber. So Mark Hamill signed another 500 of these. I think it's worth saying at this point that you really just have to love and respect Mark Hamill so much, and also kind of the love and respect he has for the fans of Star Wars. At that time, when Master Replicas had the license, there were a lot of actors who, felt uncomfortable with the fandom, or they weren't feeling Star Wars. Maybe they were a little bit ashamed of Star Wars. Maybe back then, making a pop cultural movie wasn't as cool as it is in the, since of course the Marvel Cinematic Universe and comic book movies kind of changed the face of entertainment. It's way more accepted now. Now they're dying for roles like these. But back then, maybe Star Wars was seen as a little bit of an embarrassment or something. Maybe it was seen as not a serious endeavor for great actors. And there were certain actors who didn't want to be that closely associated with Star Wars and the geek nature of things. So some of these actors didn't want to sign. Just off the top of my head, as I mentioned in some of my other reviews, they never got Ewan McGregor to sign. They didn't go to these conventions very often. They were embarrassed of them. Liam Neeson didn't sign. Natalie Portman, no. Ian McDiarmid, Palpatine, no. It's only now in the millennium, as the millennium has advanced, near the 2015s, that the relationship between fans and the movie stars that play these characters, or maybe the cultural, kind of zeitgeist of the times changed so that this became more accepted, and now those signatures are flowing more. So it's great that sometimes you see these custom Master Replicas pieces on eBay for thousands of dollars, where they basically took a regular limited edition that never had a signature edition. There's no signature edition of Qui-Gon Jinn's lightsaber. It does not exist. None of the Obi-Wan, Ewan McGregor Obi-Wan hilts have signature editions. They don't exist because he just wasn't signing at that time when Master Replicas had the license. But now that he's signing, they would, people will have these custom signature plaques made that looks basically identical to the original Master Replicas plaques, and they would have the actors sign that, and they would kind of make their own little fake signature edition, or their one of one, and they would have the paperwork to prove the authenticity of the signatures. I mean, so it's a very, very cool collectible. But in my opinion, as cool as it is, as wonderful as it is, it'll never quite be the same, of course, as if Master Replicas had an officially licensed signature like the one we have in front of us. And so an amazing props to Mark Hamill, who signed literally 1,500. He signed 1,500 of the Empire Strikes Back hilts, right? And then he came back and signed another 750 of the New Hope hilts. And in 2007, he must have been just so sick of that, he still came back and signed another 500. So you can see that the limitation got smaller, 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 but Mark Hamill still came back and did all of that, which was basically amazing. I mean, he signed more hilts than any other actor. So so much love and props to Mr. Hamill for doing that. That was like a great gift to the fandom. And so by the time we got to 2006, 2007, the line was coming to an end, and we got this kind of amazing work of art. Now this is the hilt that Luke Skywalker has in Return of the Jedi. And why is it version 2? So there is a little bit of a history to these lightsabers, as there are with every single hilt, mainly because when they were designing or making these hilts, of course they never thought that these would be analyzed on high definition 4K frame by frame. They never thought that fans or collectors or companies would be recreating these to such exhausting detail. So a lot of the odd things are basically just silly coincidences, brought about by the pressures of making a movie. On a movie set, you have to make things fast, you have to make things cheap, you have to make multiples of them, and you are very confident that nobody's ever going to freeze frame them on 4K. Of course, that's a joke. But yeah, they, of course, in their wildest dreams would never have imagined that it would be under such scrutiny. And so there's going to be all sorts of variations and little differences as they just try to get the film made, so to speak. So the reason there's two versions is because there was like a so-called hero version. So the version 1 is the hero version, and that's the lightsaber that is seen essentially in one shot from Return of the Jedi, and that's when Luke turns himself in on Endor. He finally meets his father again, but they hadn't seen each other, by the way, since Darth Vader cut off Luke's hand at Bespin and revealed that he was Luke's father. They had not seen each other since that time. So it's a little bit of a emotional, dramatic meeting. Luke dressed in black, and then Vader, of course, picks up this hilt, and not this one, but he picks up this hilt and says, I see you've constructed a new lightsaber, and he compliments Luke on his skills being, complete and how he's grown, right, as a Jedi. And that lightsaber that you see for a few seconds, and the camera pans into Vader holding it and like inspecting it, that's a really, really nice, pristine version, and they call that the version 1, the hero version. So that's not the one we have here, and that's not the one that has Mark Hamill's signature edition. That is actually the version 2, and the version 2 is the one that you see where he's holding it and he's fighting, I think on Jabba's sail barge. It's the belt hanger. It's the one that he's using when he's fighting Vader and the Death Star. This is the hilt that's essentially used for most of the movie. So ironically, the best looking version, the so-called version 1, was really only seen in one shot of the film. And this is kind of the one that was, in the majority of the movie, but you never really had a chance to see it. And this is the one that's like heavily weathered. It looks really, really beaten up. It definitely looks like it's been, seen rough times, so to speak. And that's the version 2. So this is the one that Mark Hamill signed 500, okay, only. And there is a limited edition version of the V2 as well. And then in a separate release, there's the pristine, clean version, the so-called version 1. And then the special version of that is they made an elite edition of that lightsaber. So essentially, a lot of hilts, when Master Replicas was making them, would have a so-called limited edition, and then a more special edition, which is usually the signature edition. But occasionally they would also have like elite editions. And they only made 3 elite editions, so it's very interesting. The Obi-Wan Kenobi Phantom Menace elite edition was the only version you can get from that movie. The Luke Skywalker Star Wars A New Hope elite edition, they kind of split that edition into 3 different versions. Very, very confusing. You have the limited edition, the signature edition of 750, and then you had an elite edition of 1000. So that was from the Star Wars A New Hope hilt, which is kind of crazy that there's 3 versions of the same hilt, right? And then finally, for the Return of the Jedi lightsaber, they had 2 versions, version 1 and version 2, but each version had a limited version and a so-called special edition version. So for the version 2, which is the weathered version, you had the signature. And then for the version 1, which is the absolutely clean, pristine version, you had the elite edition. So, and that one was a limited edition of 750. So I hope that all of that you can follow. It gets really, really crazy, right? If you think about that. So in a sense, while this is one of the rarest hilts in the Master Replicas line, if you're not too bothered by exactly the type and you just wanted like some version of this, then you should be able to get your hands on one, even though it may not be signature or elite, and you can have that as part of your collection. If what's important to you is not these signatures and whatnot, but just the saber or the hilt itself, then they're not, I mean, they're hard. All Master Replicas lightsabers are hard to find, but they're not like near impossible, like something like, for instance, like this or a Mace Windu signature, for instance. Okay, so that's kind of the history of the actual saber and why we even have different versions. Okay, so before we open up the acrylic case, let's take a look at the certificate of authenticity. So, again, you can tell this is one of the later ones because this comes in the envelope that actually folds out. Another thing that's kind of interesting is that this is a beige fold out. So I guess they changed it. They used to have this in the black, but now here this is just beige. I don't know whether it's because this is from the original trilogy and maybe they reserved the black just for, I don't know, the Revenge of the Sith version. So you can see this still has the business reply. And then this is the same thing with their Masters Collectors Society, I think. And then we have the warranty at the end here. This is the warranty card. And then finally, we have one of the most important things, which is the Master Replicas. You can actually see the date that they had the license, 2002 to 2007. This is the certificate of authenticity. Star Wars Luke Skywalker version 2 lightsaber, Return of the Jedi, signature edition official prop replica. You can say that 3 times fast. So this is like with a lot of the other ones, a triplicate form. Okay, so I know that if you look at my older reviews, you definitely know that there would be like a nice little saying here, like the Star Wars logo, and then you have the big picture of the actor signing right over here, and then if you open it, you have a little blurb, and then you have again the area here where you have the gold seal and then the signature of Lucasfilm and the president of Master Replicas, etc. So here, for some odd reason, they don't have the picture of Mark signing, filling up the entire thing. Here, they just kind of have, I guess, a little bit of the generic stills from Return of the Jedi. So here's Luke, very, very iconic classic shot of Luke Skywalker on Jabba's sail barge. And then here, of course, this is the ICF constructed a new lightsaber. I think when Vader's making that motion, he's saying that, I think this is where Luke mentions his name, Anakin, and he's saying, he's basically angrily telling him that name means nothing to him anymore. I think that's the dialogue that correlates with this particular gesture. So they put these two pictures here. I don't know necessarily why. That might be to illustrate the different versions. Like here, this would be the version 2 that Mark Hamill is holding. And of course, this version right here would be the pristine version. You can clearly see that's not weathered at all. And over here, if I go real close, I think you can see that actually, you can see the weathering. You can see the black weathering right over here. And you can clearly see that over here, there's none of that. So maybe that's why they wanted to sort of showcase that. I kind of wish that had been put over here or something because, I feel like this is just a really, really cool picture. It's like always my favorite part of the certificate of authenticity, showing the actor, actually signing it. So here you go, seeing him do it. and it tells you the exact date, November 14th, 2007. So this was absolutely indeed one of the very last, hilts that Master Replicas made before they lost the license. I believe that the Mara Jade Signature Edition holds the distinction of being the very last hilt that was actually made. So nothing too crazy here. I'm just going to slowly scroll up so that you can read this for yourself. Again, kind of lame. Every replica is strictly limited in the number produced. They didn't even tell you the exact number. This is just like a very generic, a little generic part of the certificate that you would find with every single hilt, which kind of sucks. There's no signature and there's this little seal. Like, why? I know I said this for the Obi-Wan Kenobi Elite Edition. Like, why did they change that? There's no need to. You didn't save that much money. Why couldn't you have just had them sign it? It's just like crazy, But anyways, there it is. So here it is, the middle section. I'm gonna just scroll up really, really slow so you can read it for yourself. So there you go. We're gonna close this and then we're gonna put it away. I don't want to open up this certificate of authenticity too often. The guy who originally owned it made this little video to show that everything was in good condition. It was really annoying because number one, he didn't wear gloves. Like he was like showing it, which was like made me cringe. The first thing I did when I got it was to wipe it off. And then the second thing is, he bent the certificate of authenticity all the way open, which is also a little bit annoying because again, why would you want to do that? You want to keep it, nice and pristine. So I try not to open it too much. But anyways, now that you have it, you can, I think I did a good job slowly scrolling through it so you can tell exactly what's going on. So if you read it, you can see that for the prop, they actually use like an older Obi-Wan Kenobi stunt lightsaber as an inspiration for this hilt. Again, necessity is the mother of invention. They had to do what they had to do to come up with things oftentimes on very, very short notice on a low budget. And so they weaved it into the story, and I mentioned this in my Obi-Wan Kenobi Phantom Menace Elite Edition video review, that oftentimes a Padawan would honor their master, that when they constructed their lightsaber, they would take some elements of their master's saber and sort of pay homage to it with their own design. Now, of course, by the time of the Return of the Jedi, that is all but extinct. So much of the history and the tradition of the Jedi Temple and the Jedi Order was completely lost when the Galactic Empire essentially, destroyed the entire order, with the exception of just Yoda and Obi-Wan at the time. And so those traditions were lost, but in a sense, perhaps Luke was doing the same thing. Now, there was really not much time to go through the whole Padawan knight master sort of thing because, things were moving very, very quickly. But, you could say that when Luke built this lightsaber, he became a Jedi Knight, so to speak, and you can definitely tell that there are similarities between this lightsaber and Obi-Wan's, especially with the ribbed area here and the thin neck over here. And this was Luke's way of, paying homage to Obi-Wan, paying homage to his memory as he constructed his own lightsaber to replace the one that was lost at Bespin. But the reality, of course, of the situation, even though it's a very, very nice lore reason, is that they just basically took an old Obi-Wan stunt hilt and they modified it to give us the new Luke version. So there you have that. I don't think even up to the time of filming it was even clear whether they were going to stick with this or try to somehow get the old Graflex design back again. But I guess at some point it just didn't really make a whole lot of sense. You lost your saber at the end of Cloud City. At what point would you have ever been able to get it back? I mean, it's not like you can pick up lightsabers at Walmart or Target. You would have had to build it, and then he would have had to again, build it himself, and it just seemed like the right moment to give a completely different design. So that's sort of the history behind why this looks the way it does, and why we have that version 2, why there was even 2 versions again to begin with. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the acrylic case off. So now you can see this in all its glory. I'm going to put this aside. And once the acrylic case is removed, the black background works a lot better. So there you have it. You can see this in all of its glory. I'm going to rotate it again really, really slowly so you can see. Here's the famous D-ring. There's the clasp. I'll move it over a little bit. So without the reflective nature of the acrylic case, you can really see all of the lovely detail of these hilts, all in aluminum. Sort of like a cool combination of Obi-Wan's design from the New Hope, and then kind of married with the Graflex elements of Luke's sabers from New Hope and Empire as well. So just sort of slowly rotating this thing so you can appreciate what it looks like on its mirror base. Very nice. You can see all of so this type of weather, this black, kind of like, it's almost like it's falling apart look. I mean, you can really see it on the screen from like a mile away, so you can definitely tell that this is the version that he's using. So here's the plaque. See the Lucasfilm symbol, Master Replica symbol. Here's Mark Hamill's signature. And mine is number 43 out of 500. There you go. I'm gonna put this back here, line it up. All right. So now, as I always do, I'm going to push this back a little bit. And then hopefully we'll have enough room to be able to examine the hilt. This is it. All of these hilts are really heavy. Even the ones made of aluminum has a certain weight. This is easily about 5 pounds, if not more. And that's kind of like the tactile element of these wonderful pieces. Maybe it's not much to look at, but these hilts are something, I guess, amazing or beautiful in themselves. And part of the joy of collecting them is the joy of actually touching them and feeling the weight in your hand, so that you actually feel like there's a piece of film history that's in your hand, which is really cool. Of course, you should do this with gloves on at all times. That goes without saying. Supposedly, this saber has never ever been displayed. That's what the original seller claimed. I mean, it's certainly in great shape. I looked very carefully. I didn't see any obvious, scratches or damage or anything like that, any type of rust. Remember, 2007 was 16 years ago. So basically, this is one of the last hilts ever made by Master Replicas. There's a little bit of the added weight of that knowledge. Mara Jade's was the last hilt, I believe, that was made. But even at 2007, that's still 16 years ago. That's ancient history, you know. And so that's a lot of time for things to fall apart, for things to degrade. So you don't see any of that here. To be fair, this is obviously weathered, so you can get away with a little bit more damage, but I don't really see any. And again, according to the original seller, this was never even displayed. It has always been just kept in its styrofoam packaging all this time. So yeah, you know, it's a joy to kind of you know, hold it, feel the weight, and then, you know, when you're holding it like this, you can kind of imagine this is what, you know, Mark Hamill must have felt as he was filming his scenes and, you know, using this this saber. So it's all just a really cool part of collecting these sabers. And you know how, no, I collect statues too, and they're amazing. That was my first love. I still love them, but there's so much more, of course, to look at and to appreciate in the statue, the paint, the sculpture. It's a very different way of appreciating these lightsabers, which is basically metal, aluminum, you know, acrylic, crystal, etc. But again, there's that tactile way of appreciating it that you can't really do with a statue. That makes this really cool in and of itself. You can see here that the knob is very much like the Obi-Wan Kenobi knob. You can definitely see the elements, you know, that's inspired. You can see the little screw right here. Then you have this knob. There's some knurling over here. It's very fine. So hopefully the camera can actually catch it to some extent. I can feel that for sure. Take a look at all of the weathering. This is just done very well. It's painted in a very specific way. I mean, maybe by modern techniques, this could be done a little bit better, but this was painted on, and it's there to, again, kind of show, you know, damage. Here's the clasp. There's the circuit board. Just kind of rotate it so you can kind of see the light glinting on it. Very beautiful. You can see here the little screw to hold everything in position. And this is sort of like the bent, not the nail. This is reminiscent of the bent nail on the Vader New Hope version. But you can see this little addition they added. Really cool as well. Going real close, ultra close view. You can see that the finish is brushed metal. Not as aggressive as the Empire Strikes Back version, but still there. 4 lines in each bar. And you can see the indentations right over here. Just showing you all of the different aspects of the saber. So for those of you who might be interested, you'll definitely be able to tell every little bit of it. Down the barrel, so to speak. And over here, you can see the rings, and they're all variable size. You can see how thin the ring is here. And then here is a little bit thicker, but they're not all identical. And you can see the intense weathering between those rings. That's supposed to showcase like heavy rust. Maybe the blackness is just from the ignition and the heat of the ignition. I can actually feel some of the defects in the paint as I feel this here. So again, just showing you all of the weathering that's gone into this. Gonna rotate it. There's only one other YouTube video of this lightsaber. I mean, it's pretty darn ridiculous. I don't think there's, I don't even remember if there's a YouTube video of the non-signature version of this. Alex L is the only other guy who, you know, put up a video. And again, he knows that he's gonna definitely have to do a better job, have a better, you know, better lighting, better video. He's gonna, I think, reshoot the reviews of all of his lightsaber collection, so he can show it off a little bit better. I'm looking forward to that. There's so few of these videos out there to show, how beautiful these lightsabers are. So I'm just really happy to add to that for those of you who are interested in things like this. You can see the thin neck and then the emitter coming up. Again, very, very similar to Obi-Wan's emitter for obvious reasons now. And then let's take a look here. Again, more of the weathering. You can see all of the different black splotches. And then finally, what makes this unique and worth thousands of dollars? 2007 Master Replicas Inc., a signature edition, 2007 Lucasfilm Ltd. So you can tell that this is indeed the signature edition. And then you can see the D-ring here, which can move back and forth, by the way. I'm just keeping it there for now. So there you have it. The Luke Skywalker Return of the Jedi version 2. Pretty awesome. So how do you put this on? If you put it on the wrong way, of course it's going to look off like here or here. So I think the best way to do it is if you do this, it'll look off, and you can't do this. So you have to do it right here. And if you do, you'll see that the neck just barely rests here and here. And then I like to just kind of rotate it to show this strip right over here. Okay, perfect. And then I'm going to put the signature plaque. And finally, we're going to put the acrylic case right over it, just like that. Take off the black background again. And then this is, of course, the paperwork. So yeah, that's it. This is one of the holy grails of the line. Very, very happy and fortunate to get this. I was thinking to myself, like, what do I consider some of the highest tier of all these hilts? Master Replicas made about 20, give or take, I think. It's different configurations. And I'm thinking, in terms of in terms of rarity, there's so many criteria that you can use to decide what is a true tier 1, tier 2 hilt. I feel like in general, the three that, in terms of like a combination of legacy, design, desirability, and you can't give like the top 10, right? Because that's stupid. I mean, there's only 20 of them. You have to make some decisions. You have to have some exclusivity. I think probably the three I would choose would be the Star Wars A New Hope dual signature Darth Vader hilt. It's the only one that has two signature plaques, in the steel plaque. It has James Earl Jones and David Prowse's signature, and it's a classic, created off of the MPP camera flash. The first appearance of the most iconic weapon of the most iconic villain in film history, right? And dual signature. Even though they made 1,000 of them, I think it still holds the distinction of being the most expensive signature edition because they priced it at an MSRP of $599 rather than $499 because of the extra signature. And so even though they made 1,000, so many of them have kind of fallen by the wayside, bad hilts, bad rubber, that you have to put that up there, okay, tier 1. This is definitely tier 1. Only 500 made, signed by Mark Hamill, such an iconic design from Return of the Jedi. Yeah, one of the last of the entire line. So Luke version 2 signature edition definitely belongs up there, highest tier. And then the third one, you can make a lot of different arguments. I mean, you can argue for the signature edition of The Empire Strikes Back Vader, because they only made 500 of those, signed by the great James Earl Jones. And again, that's from, in my opinion, the greatest Star Wars movie and one of my favorite movies of all time, Empire Strikes Back. You could argue for the Star Wars A New Hope hilt, signature edition. I love the Elite editions, by the way. Before Legacy, you've got to choose signature editions, in my opinion. So that's definitely a candidate. I mean, any of the Lukes, even the Luke Empire Strikes Back signature edition, could be in the conversation. You could talk about the Count Dooku, just because of the greatness of Sir Christopher Lee and the amazing design of that hilt, the curved hilt, kind of like, again, paying homage to Christopher Lee's fencing abilities. That's a really, really cool one. Although I think that it's hurt somewhat by the fact that they did make a bit too much of that. Like the Vader dual signature can get away with it because it's Darth Vader from Star Wars A New Hope, with David Prowse and James Earl Jones signature. 1,000 of an Attack of the Clones prequel character, that's a bit, I think, too ambitious, But when you consider everything up there with the Vader dual signature and with the Luke version 2, in terms of value, I think that last spot, the top 3, that first tier of Master Replicas lightsabers, probably has to go to the Mace Windu signature edition. Just for so many reasons. Samuel L. Jackson, such a great Star Wars fan, and George Lucas being so cool to put him in there, like kind of like what that role did for African Americans in a way. I mean, he was like the first Black Jedi, and he's like front and center. He was made the head of the entire Jedi Council. He had a purple lightsaber. It's the first time ever that we saw a lightsaber that wasn't blue or red or green. So it was purple, and it kind of introduced the concept of what different colored kyber crystals are. And of course, the design of that lightsaber is just so, it's like almost ridiculously over the top, right? It's almost like a Sith Lord lightsaber, just dripping with gold plate, electrum. The fact that the signature edition would be 18 karat gold, instead of 14 karat to distinguish it from the limited edition. It's the only release that Master Replicas did that actually had a difference between the SC and the LE, other than the engraving on the hilt. And its value, they only made 750 of them, but it's very, very sought after. Very difficult to find complete in box in good condition, and prices for it usually priced very aggressively. It's very, very difficult to find any Mace Windu complete in box for lower than 3,000. Just very, very difficult. And prices for the Mace has gone up to, just within this past month, Mace Windus that are not even complete in box have sold for 4,000. Some, will languish, but others are, they're there. So you can go as high as 4, high as 5, although that's really, really reaching, but I don't think you'll go below 3 for a Mace. I don't think you'll go below a 3 for a Darth Vader dual sig. Probably that's going to be low to mid 3s, and you're not going to go below a 3 for this. So all of these high tier sabers are all basically, low to mid 3,000 range to attain them in 2023. And because they're all signature versions and they all have so much legacy, I don't see those prices really, bottoming out if you have a truly, pristine version with original packaging and everything complete with certificate of authenticity. So I'm going to put this over here. So yeah, those would be my top tier, and I'm really, really happy to have this one. It's definitely one of the ones I've always had an eye out for, and so quite happy to get this. Next up, in another couple weeks, we'll be getting the Empire Strikes Back Luke Signature Edition, and then after that, hopefully try to get the New Hope version. That one may take a little bit of patience, but we have time. It's time to kind of ramp it down just a little bit, but that would be the plan, is to after getting the Empire Strikes Back, which is sourced, so that's already basically sourced and taken care of. It's just a matter of finally paying it off and getting it delivered in one piece, hopefully. The plan is to finish off the Luke trilogy, the Luke trifecta, so to speak, with New Hope. And then after that, it's kind of an open question. Obviously, the other signatures, I'm not as, I don't feel as much of a desire to get, but I think eventually I'll get it. I do want to get the Anakin, of all the ones that are left, between the Anakin, the Maul, and the Mara Jade. I definitely like the Anakin. That'll be one of the ones I really want to keep my eye on. But the Maul and the Jade will probably wait for quite a bit. And after that, what I'd like to do is turn my attention to picking up the next 2 Elite sabers. The one from the New Hope, because they made 1,000 of them, tends to be a bit easier to get for a bit better deal. But the Return of the Jedi Elite Edition, the clean version of this, the Hero 1, the so-called Hero, or the version 1, is a bit more challenging. So that's basically the roadmap for the rest of the hilts that I hope to acquire. And then after that, I can afford to just kind of take my time and look for opportunities as they come along. Because those edition sizes tend to be way higher, especially the Revenge of the Sith ones. I really love the Revenge of the Sith designs. Again, I don't like the trilogy, but they just have very, very high edition sizes. These are in the 4,000 range. I mean, Darth Sidious 4,000, Obi-Wan 4,000, Revenge of the Sith Anakin 4,500. I mean, they're in the 4s. And if you got 4,500 plus, even if you want that extra plaque, you're going to have some, you're going to have some opportunities. Okay, not so much with some of these guys where you're like limited edition of 500, limited edition of 750, etc. I'll end by saying that I never included the Return of the Jedi Vader, even though it's right up there with the most rare, mainly because I just don't know if it's quite as iconic as the first 2 Vaders. And if you want to choose, you want to choose a representation, you want to have Vader in that tier 1, then it's a no-brainer. You're going to go for the New Hope Vader with the Dual 6. So that's the representation of Vader in that top tier. You got a Vader, you got a Luke, you got to have those. And then that third spot, I think, is a toss-up between Mace Windu and Count Dooku. Both from the original trilogy, both kind of highlighted in Attack of the Clones. Dooku introduced in Attack of the Clones. And of course, Mace Windu having a much larger role in Attack of the Clones versus more of even a cameo, very short appearance in Phantom Menace. But the Mace Windu saber wins out just because of its secondary market value and its design, the gold, all those things. So that's how I came at my 3. How I came to my 3 choices. So I hope you enjoyed my Luke Skywalker version 2 signature edition from Return of the Jedi. really happy I have it. I hope you like how well the acrylic cleans up. By the way, when I came here, it wasn't like that. You know, it's a little bit dusty. There was a little bit of scratches here or there. So what you're seeing here is after, you know, being the scratches being removed and polished out, and then of course the brilliant eyes really, you know, taking care of it. So it looks really, really good. Really, really a beautiful saber. So there you have it. And until next time, do take care.